Good afternoon. My name is Ben Stanley, and I'm the automotive research lead in a group in IBM called the Institute for Business Value. This is the think tank inside IBM where we develop insights and future perspectives on our different industries. I have automotive. And it's based on primary research, where we spend many hours talking to executives in the industry, both automotive and mobility new startups, and also consumers. And what I'd like to do is share some observations from several surveys and studies that we've conducted over the last year or 2 years. The first one is Automotive 2025, Industry Without Borders, where we interviewed 175 executives around the world to get their insights on the next 10 years of the industry. The second one is A New Relationship, People and Cars, where we surveyed 16,000 consumers in 16 countries around the world on do they really want some of these things that the industry says will be coming. And then finally, our most recent study, which we published last week, which is called The Cognitive Effect on Automotive, which is really looking at how cognitive will create some exceptional experiences in the future for consumers. So first of all, some general observations. This is from our consumer study, and we asked consumers, how will your patterns change over the next 10 years? And you can see, first of all, the use of the personal car as a primary or secondary mode of transportation. We asked between now and in 10 years, and we see it dropping by about 5%. The second thing was, what about ride sharing, car sharing, on-demand car sharing, and e-hailing? And we could see that increasing by 15%. Public transportation, the use of public transportation going down quite a bit because people are really looking for personal mobility. And so we saw that dropping by 19%. And then a phenomenon that's just happened over the last several years is the usage of bicycles and shared bicycles, especially in some of the growth markets. We see that increasing quite a bit in the next 10 years. But based on these observations, we still see that the use of a car, the use of a vehicle, and a vehicle that's very personal, feels personal to the user, is still the desired mode of transportation. So we wanted to look at the vehicle, and when we talked to executives with our Auto 2025 study, we formulated this concept of how vehicles will be in the next 10 years. And many of these things people have talked about, but I just want to step through them briefly. First of all, we think this vehicle will be self-enabling. It'll handle many functions by itself, and it will take care of the occupants versus the occupants having to take care of the vehicle. So first of all, taking care of the occupants, this self-enabling vehicle will be self-integrating. It'll integrate into the Internet of Things. It'll become a device like any other device on the network, and it'll be part of my portfolio of devices that I rely on. And by the way, it'll also move me from one point to another. The second thing, it'll be self-configuring. It'll configure, as soon as it recognizes who I am, it'll configure to my personal preferences. And I'm not just talking about the seats moving and the mirrors adjusting. I'm talking about being able to manage the layout of the dashboard, being able to bring my own personal music in, being able to bring my own personal information in case I need it for different aspects. And it will feel like my vehicle whether I own it or not. The second part is around taking care of itself. This vehicle will be a self-learning vehicle. It will be able to learn about its occupants, it'll be able to learn about its environment, and it'll be able to optimize. It'll optimize about the performance of itself and also optimize for the pleasure of the people that are in the vehicle. It'll be self-healing. Through nanotechnology and over-the-air software updates, vehicles will be able to start fixing themselves. If it gets a dent, it'll be able to adjust, and if there's a software problem, it'll make that fix. And then finally, the last part is working with others. Self-driving is something that we hear a lot about, automated or autonomous, and in the next 10 years, cars will be able to do this. And the second thing is self-socializing, communicating with other vehicles, communicating with the infrastructure, communicating with other entities that I might want to have it communicate to, like my insurance company or other things. So we see this concept of how the vehicle will look in the next 10 years. So one thing we wanted to do was ask consumers, do you want this stuff? So from our 16,000 consumers we surveyed around the world, you can see that we have a pretty good acceptance. All categories people said we're either very or extremely interested, and we're in the 50% range. So it shows the desire that people are looking for vehicles to continue to be their personal way of moving around, and there are many people who are excited about these new features. But we also wanted to ask about other things that you want to do from the car as you're moving around. As the car takes over more responsibility, people have time to do other things. And so we asked about other mobility services. So we asked for things like information. Do you want to be able to access different forms of information? Do you want your entertainment to be accessible? Do you want to be able to buy things from the car through commerce? And again, this isn't sitting in the car using my smartphone. This is sitting in the car and having the car actually perform these functions for me. How about health? 46% of the people we surveyed said that I want the car to be able to have the option to help monitor my health in case I have a certain situation where it can sense that I'm exhibiting some kind of symptoms. Concierge, buying things, education, have my kids learn while they're in the car as they're coming home from school or whatever, and even marketing, although it's our lowest one, there's still a healthy appetite of a third of the people we surveyed that said they want this. But the thing is, we tend to think of all consumers as the same. We kind of tend to lump them together, that everybody's digital savvy and everybody wants all the technology. And what we found from this group of 16,000 people is there really are some breakdowns between what people want from their digital mobility experience. 18% or 16% are the pace setters. Those are the groups that they want this stuff, they can't wait for it, they're standing in line for the next $1,000 iPhone, and you don't have to convince them too much that they're going to be first in line to get these technologies. Right behind those are the fast followers. There's the ones who are interested, they said they want them, but they're waiting to see what happens with the pace setters, and so they're a little bit laggard behind, but they still don't take much convincing to want this stuff. The interesting groups are the last two. The pack. This is a group, 38%, that said that, I'm interested, but I need to know more. I need to be convinced. I'm not quite sure. It's not that they're not excited, it's just that they need to have more information or need help in getting to that conclusion. And then finally, spectators. That's a group that says, I'm happy with what I want or have. I don't need new mobility modes. I don't need services. I just need something to get me one place to another. If I look at my own personal situation, I'm probably a fast follower. I'm not first in line, but I'm very interested in this technology that's coming along. My daughters, my two oldest daughters, they're in their 30s. They're probably in the pack. And my wife and my mother, no matter what I say, I can't convince them that cars will be safer in the future and you'll be able to do things that you really want to do as you're moving around. So I want to look at this pack group a little bit more because I think this is a really interesting group. And the assumption would be right away that, well, these must be the old people, and they probably are people that don't really know what's going on. But actually, if you look at this graphic here, the pack is it's primarily, almost 60% is from the mature markets. We found that the growth markets are much more excited, much more interested in some of these technologies than mature markets. Gender-wise, it's split, 49% to 51%. And look at the age group distribution down on the lower left. It's the younger it's made up of many younger generation people in that category. So if you look at the countries up at the top there, I find this really interesting. So now we break it down by country. Look at Germany. 50% of our respondents fit in the pack group. So they're sitting there looking, watching, wanting to know more, but they're really not convinced yet. And look at some of the other mature markets. US 41, Japan 42%, and so on. So I think this is a really interesting group, and we at IBM think that there's a way to entice this group and help them along, and that is through cognitive systems. And when I talk about cognitive systems, I'm talking about artificial intelligence, I'm talking about machine learning, prescriptive analytics, natural language processing, and so on. We think these systems can really help people move to this acceptance level if they can help people better understand and better use these capabilities. And you can see some of the characteristics. These systems can understand. They can take lots of different types of data, volatile, uncontextual data, and make sense out of them. They can understand, they continue to learn and keep learning. And then finally, I think which is really important is they can engage naturally with a person. So you think about a personal assistant in a car, having that dialogue to help somebody learn how these technologies are being used or to help them figure out how to take advantage of them. And from our cognitive study, we wanted to find out, is the industry ready for this technology? And is the technology ready for the industry? And so we asked 3 questions. First of all, is cognitive computing mature and market ready? And this is from 500 executives around the world. 63% said that yes, it is. We think cognitive technologies are at the point where the industry can start taking advantage of them and they can find real benefits. The second thing we said, is the industry ready? Do you think the industry is ready for this kind of technology? And again, 64% said yes. And then finally, and most importantly, is your organization ready? And 62% said yes, our organization is ready. So we feel that we're at this inflection point where these 3 things are coming together. And oh, by the way, we also asked, will you be investing over the next 3 years? And there was a very high number of companies that said yes. We see it being a disruptive force over the next 3 years, and we plan to start investing. So we really start seeing how these cognitive technologies are going to weave themselves into this self-enabling vehicle and these new mobility services and really help this PAC group and even the spectators move along to become believers in the future of where mobility is going. A couple specific things we asked about the in-vehicle experience. So this is the personal experience that people will have when they get into the vehicle. And 70% of the executives said, we believe that this will have a significant transformational impact on how people experience the vehicle as they're using it. And coincidentally, 70% also said that for mobility services, so all those services that I mentioned around health and commerce and cognitive and being able to use different modes of transportation, these capabilities will also have a significant impact on those. So, to learn more, I'd invite you to come to our booth. We're in C30 right down the hall there. And we can talk to you about some of the exceptional experiences that we're starting to help automotive companies make with these cognitive technologies. And if you'd like to know more about our studies, I've got the 3 studies on the screen there. You can download these. Any of the content that we develop in the IBV across all industries and also across different technologies is free. We invite you to take advantage of reading it, and if you want to contact any of us, we'd be more than happy to talk to you. So with that, thank you for your time, and hopefully we'll see you in a little bit. Thank you.